I would like to start our conversation by asking you what are some of the emerging technologies from your perspective and how do they impact on teaching and learning and the choices we make as teachers?
Well, first of all, thanks, Paul, for having me here. It's because of you that I am here, so my thanks to you too. In terms of the technologies, I think what's interesting about the technologies is not so much the specific technologies, but the affordances of the technologies.
What do you mean by that?
I mean what the technologies make possible.
Okay.
And I know it's a contested word. I know there's a lot of argument about that word and some people really object to it, but I can't think of a better one.
Okay.
So the technologies make possible different types of engagement. And that's what's so interesting about them. The ability to have conversations across time, across place, synchronous and asynchronous, the fact that conversations become recorded and become forms of content that can be engaged with, those are the exciting things about the technology and what that offers to teaching and learning and to the educational process.
This morning you referred to the work of Manuel Castells, an author that I also love, and he says the network society does not only include but also exclude. So how does that affect the affordances?
Well, at the end of the day, it's people who take up those affordances. So the technology makes possible, but it's human beings with their interests who take advantage, exploit, utilize for different ends. And Castells is so optimistic. He believes that these networks in this network society, that the internet, this distributed network, he believes that this will enable more inclusivity across borders and that the whole shape of the world is actually changing. And of course, I would like to believe that too. But it's also possible to use those technologies to further exclude. I suppose the most dramatic possibility is of the technologies being used to connect the educated and the elite and those with access to capital of all different types across the world, leaving the don't-haves and the not-haves further excluded.
You exploit is a very strong word. Do you think in the higher education landscape, the South or the global South or the developing world are being exploited or mined as a market?
Well, technologies certainly, digital technologies certainly provide opportunities for different interests. And obviously there will be parties who will take advantage of those opportunities. If devices and connectivity is becoming more ubiquitous, which it is, unevenly so, but it is, then obviously it becomes a marketing opportunity. And so the higher education space, which has always had some private interest, is becoming much more the object of interest for a whole range of parties. Some of whom are unexpected ones, who we wouldn't have traditionally thought of. So I'm thinking about the telecom providers. I'm thinking of the Googles of this world. When we map out the landscape of who's involved in higher education, it's a mixture of non-government organizations, private companies involved in technology, but also involved in intellectual property. So yes, so the landscape in that sense, the role players are definitely more complex, and there is more private sector interest. We know this. We can track it.
Okay. When the massive open online courses started, they promised that that's the salvation. That's sort of the solution to all our educational problems, and most probably to the huge need for access to education in the developing world. Do you think that's a deferred promise, or do you think it was a blatant lie?
Well, it's never one thing or the other, is it?
Yes.
So it's all of the above.
Okay.
Certainly, I think there was a lot of naivety. I think a lot of the original founders were sincere.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that they were not really aware of the complexities of what we understand access to be. So I think for those of us who work in teaching and learning in South Africa and who've been engaging in these issues for a long time, access on its own without what is sometimes called epistemological access is not access. Access without support is not access. Access without opportunity for success is not access. So I think that was a naive view. Of course, I still think that there are possibilities for those MOOCs to play interesting and exciting roles, but we would have to get past some of those IP, those intellectual property gates that actually make it difficult. At the moment, you do a MOOC, it's a course, it starts, it stops. You participate, you sign on to participate on the terms of the MOOC provider. You sign away your own conversations and content to the MOOC provider. In fact, the only one that gives you the right to reuse your own content is FutureLearn.
Wow.
The others actually all take exclusive ownership of the content you generate for those MOOCs. And then afterwards, if you want to adapt them for local use, which is an interesting possibility, you pay.
I totally agree. One of the main issues that you raised this morning was that a lot of the knowledge is currently produced in the Northern Hemisphere, in the North Atlantic and Anglophone countries. How should a developing country respond? We complain that all the knowledge are Western-based and Western epistemologies. How should we respond?
You know, for those of us who are deeply committed to teaching and learning issues, it's very easy to dismiss all of these trends and these global claims, but we can't. Okay. So how do we respond? We have to get involved.
Okay.
We have to produce content. We should be producing our own MOOCs.
Okay.
We have to put our footprint out there, because if we don't, we will drown in invisibility. It's so easy to find content from the north. I mean, we know that most of Wikipedia is northern. We know that more than 50% of Wikipedia comes from the US alone. You know, the Coursera has a massive footprint. None of that is our knowledge. If we don't actually insert it into those networks, it can't be engaged with. So we actually have to change the terms of engagement.
Last question from my side is, UNISA is the largest distance education provider in Africa and one of the largest institutions in the world, and most probably the oldest distance education institution. How should UNISA respond? Or any distance education provider, now that all the elite universities are offering online and distance? How should we respond? What is our unique value contribution?
Well, I think distance education providers such as UNISA are nervous, and I think they are right to be nervous. But they have got decades of extremely detailed and deep knowledge about engaging with learners who are not physically in the same place as their teachers.
Yes.
And that is what needs to be contributed, because this online game is not going to work for anyone genuinely, in the sense of the kinds of access and success I mean, without that deep knowledge.
Thank you, Laura, so much for the engagement. I wish you all of the best.